everybody, this is Cherie with Rehashfiber. Bart and I did our dual show together, Bart of Scotch Dummies. We had so much fun, we just kept going and going. Unscripted, just knowing that we were going to be tasting some of this wonderful Tomatin Scotch and just going with the flow and letting them tell some stories. There was so much good stuff that it is 2 episodes. So today, you're gonna get episode number 1. And he starts right off talking about his Scottish Tam.
Excellent. See, I can hide my face with your Scottish Tam.
Okay.
I can just come on and
There
then I
you
can
go.
go, boom.
All right.
So you can see all angles. Look at this. If there was like sleet coming down, I could protect my ear.
If you're gonna do the Scotch tasting with us today, grab your Tomatin 12, some water and a straw, and a nice glass to put your Scotch in. Hey everybody, I am here with my brother Bart from Scotch Dummies, and he was already going on about the hat that I made him. Do you see the hat? Do you see the hat? He's wearing it. Welcome, Bart.
That. Hello.
You know what I want to do is, because whoever watched the Scottish Tam video, I said, hey, well, I've told everybody, hey, look out for this dual video we're going to do together.
Right.
And I made you the hat, and I see it looks really good. Thank goodness. Yep. Because you could see when I was done felting it, the head hole was huge, and I was like, nope. But it works, and it looks
I
really
do have a
good.
big head. I have
It
a
looks
very
good.
large
Yeah.
noggin.
Uh-huh.
Noggin large.
You look like a Scottish Highlander, which you know I love.
Perfect. Yes, I know. I need a beard though. If my day job let me have the beard, we had a no shave November that the chief extended for 3 months, and I had a full beard, and it looked well. It had to be trimmed beard, but it looked good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So one thing I'm going to do for you and your fans, we are going to walk through a tasting of Tomatin 12. Let me explain first. Well, one, there's going to be a funny story later about when my co-host on Scotch Test Dummies, Scott, and I actually went to the Highlands, which is where this is from, and we toured Tomatin, which is the distiller that this came from. I'm going to tell a funny story, and it's going to involve some German. So you just remind me of that. Yes, there'll be basically, I was yelling German. Boom, you'll cue that story later, and I'll yell it and explain it and how I freaked out the Tomatin distillery. So that's going to be one. Oh, yeah, that'll be one. So there'll be a funny story. We will also talk about literally the best way to taste whiskey, especially if you're fairly new or it's your first time having whiskey. A big part of the tasting is actually the smelling. And I know we have a lot of female viewers for Scotch Test Dummies, but predominantly male. Women actually have better noses in general than men. So women can do 2 things. They can usually get a lot more of the subtler aromas, but they've got to be a little cautious sometimes of that higher alcohol by volume. You'll hear me call it ABV. It can actually kind of sting your nose a little bit. So we'll also talk about glassware. Now, I have tons of glassware, but why don't you show them what you picked up and how? Because that's a cool story.
Oh, you think it is?
I do. Because this Riedel glass, this is a special. Riedel makes all kinds of wine glasses too.
Uh-huh.
We had their rep on a show, and sorry, there's some water spots on that one. I should have dried it. This is a special cognac tasting glass, but really with whiskeys, cognac is a distilled wine, basically. You want anything that's like a tulip shape that will funnel the nose or funnel the fumes to your nose. So, but you were like, can I get something like that at, well, why don't you tell?
Well, yesterday when we were kind of visiting about this, I was like, what kind of glass do I need? Or like, okay, get one that's like a tulip. I stuck tulip in my head. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then I asked you, can I get it at Goodwill? Which was really stupid because you don't go to my Goodwill.
No, but I go to Goodwill's, but I'm like, no, you ain't gonna find no tulip shaped glass at Goodwill. Yeah.
And you're like, go to Amazon because you know everything in the world's on Amazon. But
you might find like a beer hat, with jugs on the side. But see, I think you've got a better Goodwill than I got.
a lot of really good neighborhoods are right around that Goodwill. So we can find anything, really good clothes and shoes. I mean, just every day, everybody goes there shopping for stuff.
I
So
bet you
anyway,
can't find a Scottish Tam.
No,
You can't find a Scottish
no.
Tam there.
Yeah, you've got the one and only probably around.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. So look what I found, and it looks like a tulip. So is this going to work?
It should work perfectly. So, and it should work, but mine, the nose or the top will kind of funnel in. We today and your followers are going to try to nose it and see what we can pick up. So that's when a smaller opening becomes handy. And so you're good. For your folks at home that maybe don't have that or one of mine, a fluted champagne glass will often work. So you'll just see, all I'm saying is this one is fat at the bottom. So this one's like me, fat at the bottom. Okay. And a little skinny up top, Yeah, that's right.
You're not fat at the bottom.
I know. It just was funny. It was funny. Mine needs more of like a beer belly sign right there.
Okay.
Sorry.
So I have one little thing to tell you. When I was standing in line at ABC Liquors getting this, I was reading the back of this and my heart rate was going faster and faster because it's describing beautiful things. It's describing the mountains, the berm, the highlands, and how they can be so rough, but yet this is smooth. And I was like, oh,
right. You will end up sipping this while watching Outlander, and it'll give you like, it's almost like smell-o-vision that they tried at the movie theaters where they would like put a little spray of something in and you'd be like, oh, I'm there. Didn't quite work well in the movie theater, but this will give you both smell and taste, bringing in sound and vision. You'll have all but one thing, and that would be touch. So yeah, Outlander won't give you touch. That's probably a good thing.
I think so.
Well, it's either I got to tell you, by the way, because of talking to you recently, I lost Outlander when they were in France. It was killing me. It was like a soap opera. I was like, oh my God.
Okay, well, it kind of goes on like that, but you missed the big war.
Well, no, I'm coming back. No, there was a guy at work who's pretty tough. We call him Siebes. He's pretty tough. And he asked me about whiskey, saying he and his wife were watching Outlander. I'm like, well, isn't that interesting? And he goes, we just finished it. Can't wait for the next episode. I go, how did you get through France? Because France lost me. White witch, pregnancies, loss of baby. I was like, oh my God, a lot of fancy frills. And then Liz, my wife, was like, come on, just try to stay with it. And he told me, get through France, and then it gets back to Scotland. We just got back into Scotland. So we finished the last 2 French episodes. Okay. And they just landed back in Scotland. Now, so we're ready. The Jacobite War's coming, baby.
There you go. It's coming.
Okay.
You have your whiskey and watch it.
Right. All right. So now read some of those things on the back that intrigued you, because their alliteration is good.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This is perfect, because as I start reading it, I'm like, oh no, here we go.
Do it.
To Scotland.
Do it.
Since 1897, there has been a quiet revolution unfolding in the heart of the Scottish Highlands.
Bingo. There you go.
High up amongst the smooth, rounded peaks of the Monadhila Mountains, something like that. There is no room for the rugged and robust. Here, patience, a gentle hand, and a passion for purity rule the day.
Bam.
I'm like, am I buying an adventure?
You are.
And then the guy's like, next, and I'm like,
oh,
I'm going on an adventure here.
Yeah, you were like, I was in the Highlands. Hold on a second.
I know, right?
Right.
Oh,
that's exactly it. No, that's exactly it. Now, and whiskey needs to be okay. So here's our Scotch Test Dummy rule. First of all, you drink whiskey any way you want. When we first started, the whole show was based on the fact that we were a couple whiskey dummies. We were not experts. So it was us learning and you watching as you went. Well, now we're 7 years in. We still don't claim to be experts, but we've sampled so many whiskeys. You can see some behind me. Bourbons, we've rye, Japanese whiskey that's in a Scottish style, all kinds of stuff that we know a few things now, but the first rule always to come back to is you drink the whiskey the way you like it. There are no other rules. Only a novice will come up and say, you can't put ice in your whiskey. You can't do this. You got to do this. You got to do that. Anybody that starts telling you or any of your viewers what they got to do with their whiskey, it's your bloody whiskey. So just know that. Yeah, know that. It's yours. Now, I'm going to walk through some things, but none of these are rules. When we first started tasting, I arranged a couple tastings. I was actually like a little bit, I felt like, well, there's rules and I don't know what the rules are. That's all rubbish. So you try the whiskey the way you want. And with the idea that a lot of your viewers, maybe, I'm sure some love whiskey, but some probably never have had it before. We're going to walk through a system that I like to use with newer drinkers. So if somebody's more of a seasoned whiskey drinker, just bear with me and we'll get to that point as well. It means we won't start neat. We will water it down a little bit so it's a little more approachable. Just realized you see me wiping my face and everything while you're gone. This hat is hot. It's a warm hat.
You talking bad about me while I'm gone?
No, I was wiping my face and then I'm like, you're going to be editing this later. And then I said, this is a warm hat because I'm getting a little sweaty and that's good.
You were leaving me some funny words while I was gone and be like, what?
Nope.
Okay.
You're good.
Got my water, got my straw.
Perfect. All right. So before we get into the tasting, we will get into that in a second. Yeah. All right, let's get you into pouring some whiskey. So if they've picked this up, this is a 12-year single malt Scotch. What that means is they've taken malted barley. It's the only grain in this. And by law in Scotland, it has to be at least 3 years old to be called Scotch, and it's got to be distilled in Scotland. Of course, this proclaims right on the bottle 12 years. Sometimes they'll have what's called a no age statement. They won't tell you how old it is. And maybe that's because it tasted really good at 7 years, but a lot of people equate years of age with value or flavor. Not always the case, but this is a 12-year-old whiskey. So it sat in a barrel for 12 years and matured in the Highlands. So I won't get into some other things because this is bourbon and sherry casks. Real shortly, they will age whiskey, Scotch, in used bourbon barrels. They literally will buy the barrels from you name it, a whiskey place where they had bourbon in it, and they will then age their whiskey in that barrel. And then in this case, they'll even have sherry barrels or butts. They're bigger, and they'll put them into the sherry butt for a while and sometimes give it a little extra kind of fruity kick. I won't get that in this one as much, but it's approachable. It's actually fairly inexpensive for a 12-year-old Scotch. And Tomatin does wonderful, wonderful things. This is their entry-level Scotch. But what we're going to do is pick your glass and just pour a little bit in, not a whole bunch, so whatever you're comfortable with, but we're going to be diluting this. So pour in. We don't want you to pour like a bunch and then, ooh, that's a lot. You're good. That's a good amount actually in a whiskey.
Too much?
So no, you're all right. That's a lot though. That's a fat bottom glass down there. I'm going to show you. So you're good. Let me show you what I poured in this little deal here.
Oh my.
So yeah, you may even want to pause. Why don't we do this? No, leave this in. Don't cut this out. Grab you another little glass that you can pour some excess in, because what we're going to do is dilute this down. And if I diluted that much down, you would be drunk by the time this show is over.
Ooh.
I'll show you. So go grab another little glass so you can pour some of that off. You can see literally I've got just like a tiny little amount in there. You can see it's almost, yeah, that's good. All right. All right. So we've poured off a little bit because here's what we're going to do. I'm going to tell all your viewers and you before we start, we're going to do a 3-step sipping process to this whiskey. We're going to, before we try it neat means no water in it, no nothing. Sometimes when you try whiskey neat, and by the way, the alcohol by volume, I believe is 43%. So 43% has to be at least 40% to be Scotch. This is 43%. But if we were to drink this neat with no water, and I do that a lot, but if for a brand new drinker, it can even kind of shock your tongue or your palate or your taste buds.
Mhm.
So now, I will generally not use my water with the ice in it because it's just like hot food versus cold food. If you have cold food, it doesn't taste as good because the more heat that's there, the warmth, the more the flavors release. Whiskey is very much the same. Now, I will chill whiskey sometimes when I'm drinking it, but generally it's room temperature. Now, I have a special little water dropper that I'm going to use. You don't need that. You can use a cap. You can use a straw, which is, it looks like what you're getting ready to do. I'm going to pour this water. Generally, you want something that's either filtered water or maybe even bottled water, just basically something that's kind of neutral flavor, because sometimes you don't want like a seltzer water. Some people want their drink that way, but we're talking about trying to taste this in a pure sense. So all you're doing is diluting, but we're going to dilute pretty heavy on this very first one. The middle one's going to be diluted a little lighter. So get what you consider is a pretty good drop and then put it down in your whiskey, and I'll kind of see how much you got there. So yeah, go ahead and do that. Yeah, get a pretty hefty one. We're going to want this first one pretty. Sure. Yeah, we're going to want this first one pretty diluted. There you go. Now, I'm going to tell you that is a lot more than what you would want to drink probably routinely. But what we are doing and what your folks are doing with us is we're testing this whiskey. This is a Scotch test tasting. So this is now diluted more than any aficionado would want to do. But I will tell you this, I've met professional tasters and folks that will taste at competitions, and usually their very first dram, they'll over dilute. They'll bring the dilution down probably about where we have it, just because they're going to step up as they go. So you want to bring it up to your nose, and you can do a couple things here. You can just, your nasal passages, both nostrils will smell differently. Mm-hmm. So you can pinch one off and then just kind of smell. Go in easy with the dilution. It shouldn't shock your nose, but it could. No shock. Now, what are you picking up? And say the first thing that comes to mind. It doesn't matter what it is.
Well,
what do you smell just generally?
I'm having trouble getting past the alcohol smell.
Okay, good. Put another drop of whiskey.
At all.
No. Put one more drop of whiskey in there, or not whiskey, water. One more drop of water, not a big one. Put another little drop of water in there from your straw.
But maybe I need to change my thought process.
It could be, but if you're getting, like I said, this is going to be the heavy dilution stage. We are going to try it with just a small drop, and then we're going to try it neat, but those will be in a little bit. Well, see, that time maybe caramel. Okay, good. And then more
because I'm trying to think no alcohol.
And you're doing perfect.
Switching sides of nose or should nostrils?
You can do both. You can switch off. You'll be amazed. Sometimes you'll pick something up different from a different nostril. It's really weird, but I've had it happen. And then you want to try both. And you can kind of move your nose around in the glass too. Get your nose right down in that glass.
I'm still getting a lot of caramel.
Good.
A little apple came through.
There you go. I actually do get a little bit of apple here. It's almost like a green apple.
That's what I was going to say, a green apple.
There you go. See, we're linking up here. And so the cool part about whiskey tasting and nosing is it's almost like a meditative kind of being a presentness, being in the present moment. And what you're doing is by focusing on the single sense of smell and really doing what you exactly said, which was the first time all you got was the alcohol smell, but then you went in again and now, oh, I got a little caramel there. And then, oh, now I got a little green apple. So for me, immediately, it takes me to those caramel covered green apples that you have in Halloween.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because I'll get both of those. Now it's subtle. And that's why sometimes you may get something different, or we're even filming this a little, well, we're in the afternoon now. I had a schedule change, but a lot of times I'll do my tasting at 10 a.m. because I don't have a lot of different things on my palate. I'm pretty alert. Now, again, you don't have to do any of that, but a big part of actually spending time with your whiskey is the nose. And a big part of taste, I would say about 60% of your taste is actually what your nose picks up. So nosing is a big part of tasting whiskey. So that's perfect. You already got caramels, which is very normal, comes from the bourbon barrels. You'll get a lot of that out of the oak. And the apples are something that I've even described like a crispness. I've occasionally gotten a pear. It feels like a cool, crisp pear. And it's weird when you're describing a smell of a drink with crispness, but it's just that kind of oddity. So you just hit on the first thing is go with what you get. I got bananas once and I kept thinking that's crazy. And then the guy next to me was like, I'm getting bananas. And I was like, oh, cool. And it turned out on that particular dram, a lot of people got ripe banana. So I was like, wow. So, and that's a big part of it, is just being in the moment and letting your sense of smell take you to a place. And now that you've got that, and with that glass there too, there was a professional taster that said a glass, both like what we have, sometimes you can put your nose up to the rim and what you're getting is literally the fumes that are spilling over the top. And so you can practice nosing. Did you get something?
I got the scents that were coming over the top.
Yep.
Not anything in particular. It was just nice because it was a gentle.
Yeah. And that's one way. So you can even your nose can approach the rim of the glass. You can get down inside of it. Mm-hmm. And you can try to get different things. I also get a little bit of that apple smell is the malted barley is what I get from it too. Sometimes I'll get a heavy grassy note, or I've even said it feels like somebody's mowing hay, which happens a lot in Kansas. There'll be fresh rolled hay or whatever, and you kind of get a musky scent from it. And that's what I'll get from malted barley sometimes as well. So now this is heavily diluted down. You get a little nose, you got your apple and your caramel. I agree with you 100%. You're spot on. Now you might get totally different things. Your viewers may get something totally different. That's all fine. We actually all have slightly different noses. Mm-hmm. So someone may get much deeper layers and someone may get something totally different. No caramel, no apple. And that's fine too. But now we're going to take a little sip. Now I'm going to give you a little tip. We're probably diluted down here that it won't shock your palate anyway, but you can let a little bit of saliva build up in your mouth if you wish. And then when you take a sip, it's also diluted just by the saliva in your mouth. Now we've watered it down enough here that you probably don't need to do that. But whenever somebody pours me something and I see that it's a high ABV, alcohol by volume, we're talking 50% or above, I'll do that naturally, especially if there's no water around, because I don't want it to shock my palate too much. And then I take a small sip. So on this one, even though we've diluted, get a good nose in, and then just take a small sip of the whiskey and hold it in your mouth. Don't swallow it right away. Just let it kind of work its way around and then swallow. All right. And now you can open your mouth a little bit after you swallow, or let it kind of, and breathe in over top the whiskey. Is it making you cough a little bit? That's all right. It's strong. That's good. You got to leave that in. All right. Now that first sip, you don't have to describe the flavors. What did you get? Was it an overpowering alcohol taste on the, yeah? Okay.
I couldn't now remember anything. It was good because I don't mind. I drank a variety of drinks. Mm-hmm. So I don't mind that so much. I just couldn't taste any other flavors besides the alcohol.
Perfectly fine. The first time you nosed it, all you got was alcohol as well. So you've gotten some in there. Now this one sometimes, I don't know if it's because it's a 12-year, it's, to me, you're also going to get some, look for, like, sometimes a whiskey may taste dry a little bit, and kind of like you can have a dry wine or a fruity wine. You can get similar things here. This one to me is a little dry and I get a little bit of a bitter, nutty kind of ness on the forefront. And as you taste, sometimes you'll get a flavor on the front, and then it'll move into a flavor in the middle. And then after you swallow, it'll go into a finish. And sometimes some whiskeys will dance around and change over even a minute, and they'll move through different things. So the same way you focused on your nose, and the first time you got just the alcohol, we're going to go back in and we'll sip again just a little bit. You could add a little water if you want, or bring a little more saliva into your mouth. But this time, try to see, do I get any other flavors, and just be in the moment.
I think it tastes good, but I can't pick out the flavors.
Sure. And I just get this one. I don't have a ton of different flavors. I get that nutty kind of bitterness on the front, and then I get a little bit of honey. Tastes like it's weird, like a dry honey, which makes no sense verbally. And then in the finish, you can kind of breathe. And I do a circular breathing where it's like through my nose and my mouth, and I will get like a little bit of a creamy kind of flavor in the finish. Now, you haven't sipped again. Do you have any kind of leftover residual flavors in your mouth? And if you don't, that's fine. Got it. That's totally fine. And I've been doing this for a long time. So sometimes you'll get something in the finish, so I can still pick up a little bit of that creaminess that's on there. Now nose it again and see if your nose changed at all. Sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. And see, I actually don't get as good of a nose as I did before I tasted it now.
Me neither.
I'm having a harder time picking up the green apple.
Yeah, same here. Is it because
So sometimes that'll change. Huh?
Is it because there's less in the glass?
It could be. Could be that. It could be that now that it's on your palate, that you're picking up different things from the alcohol. So the first rule is here, is dilute down, and don't be afraid to go past what most people would drink it as. You can dilute down and just play. We at Scotch Test Dummies, we play with our whiskey. I could spend, with some drams, I could spend a good 15 minutes just working this down and trying to get different flavors. Some people like to take notes. Some people just, they're contemplative and they're just really focusing on the whiskey. I occasionally will watch a show, and I'll have a whiskey out on the side table, and I'll just be trying to like let it surprise me as I'm watching the show. But I'm usually drinking small amounts. What's really cool is sometimes Liz will smell it. I'm telling you, women have way better sense of smell than men. And she'll be like, wow, that smells like fruity. Can I try it? Now, she'll usually try it and go, ooh, it doesn't taste fruity. And I'll go, yeah, sorry. That one's pretty strong. So the main rule here is don't be afraid to dilute down and to take it below what the norm would be. Now, again, I wouldn't necessarily advise ice while you're trying to do that, because the ice can sometimes chill it and you won't get as many flavors oftentimes from a colder whiskey. So, but if you want to try ice, you can try ice. Some of my friends like ice because as it melts, the dilution changes, and they sometimes find a sweet spot, and they'll even pull out a melting ice cube because they liked it where it hit a certain spot. All the ice cube's doing is slowly diluting their whiskey. So ice is fine. Some people even like it a little cooler. Again, you drink whiskey your way. So let me do the same thing you did.
It's good. but I'm just.
But is the alcohol, the strong alcohol is kind of giving you a bite?
Not so
Is
much
it too
the
strong?
water. No, I'm just, because I've watched so many of your shows,
Mm-hmm.
and I do it like when I'm doing things up here in the studio, I turn on your show, even though I'm not a Scotch drinker, and I hear you talk about these flavors all the time. And I'm like, oh, I got to have a part of that. And so right now, as I drink it, I don't have any of that, even though I'm actually liking it, but I'm liking the alcohol taste.
Okay.
I would like to be able to taste what I smelled. And I know that will probably come over time.
Yep. Your palate can definitely work into it, and different whiskeys may hit you in a different way.
Okay.
This 12-year-old Tomatin to me is it's a little more subtle. It's not because I debated with what we were going to have for your show, because there's some a lot of them get a little more pricey, so I didn't want to do that. But there's some like multiple caskings and sherry. This one has a little bit of a sherry finish to it, where they can get a little more fruity. So I was thinking maybe fruity for you, but then some of those prices will start to go up pretty high. Where I get this one, this particular 12-year-old Tomatin, it was the first time I was able to pick up that fresh mown hay kind of flavor as well, and a little bit of a nuttiness I get now. And that to me is how if you give me a blind dram, I've gotten better to the point where I can tell you if that's a Scotch or if that's a bourbon, or if I'm picking up malted barley, or if I'm picking up more what I think is corn or rye. So the different grains that are used, and in this case, it's all malted barley. And this one isn't going to transition real big through a bunch of different flavors. So I kind of picked it for that reason, that it's a little more straightforward. Now, we're going to pour another one, and this time we're only going to use a tiny drop of water. So this one's going to have a little bit more. So, you can rinse it out. I'm using a different glass.
Oh, can I use the same glass and then this?
You sure can. What I do a lot is especially since we're using the same exact whiskey, swish it around and then drink the water that you've got, basically. Or you can dump that if you want. I usually drink the water after I kind of. Oh yeah, that's your other whiskey. That's the whiskey
that I poured into a glass.
Yep. Sorry. I was thinking you were pouring some water in there. So that's good.
Okay, so now back to straight whiskey here. Is that too much?
Pour about half of that back into that same glass.
Okay.
Because this is going to be just a small drop of water. Yep, that's good. That's good. We're going to do one little drop of water from your straw. So just know kind of that you're putting a small drop, and you're only going to do one. And this would be just enough water. There you go. That's perfect. So what water will do with whiskey, first of all, this whiskey probably came out of the barrel at a higher than a 43% proof anyway, and they added some water to it. You can buy whiskeys that are cask strength. That means whatever the alcohol volume by volume was when they bottled it from the barrel, they didn't add any water to it. Most of these will add water and bring it down to 43% in this case. So you're not committing a sin by adding a little water to it. They've already added water at the distillery with this. What water will sometimes do in your glass, sometimes it'll do nothing. Sometimes it just dilutes. Sometimes it will open a drink up. Now, again, we've had a heavily diluted one already, but sometimes one drop of water into some whiskey will change the flavors, sometimes drastically. Again, sometimes they'll do nothing. So I wanted to do one where we've just had one sip. Now, first nose it, or one drop, nose it again, and see if did you get a different nose?
Well, no, I just got more of a fragrant, which was great. It was like a bouquet of scent, but I can't pick it out yet.
Yep. And I'll let you describe first. I know I'm picking up definitely more nose with just a single drop.
Definitely more. It smells really good.
Yes.
Black cherry.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, I get a dark fruit. And actually, when you said black cherry, it's definitely that kind of, I mean, I was thinking dark fruit, black cherry's right in there. Yeah, and I get I almost get a little bit of like a creaminess on the black cherry as well, but black cherry is spot on, and I did not get that at all when I had it heavily diluted. Right. Yep, and you nailed that because I was sitting there just thinking dark fruit, but it's almost got that. It's like that. I don't know. Black cherry's got a little bit of bitter kind of nose to it as well.
But I'm not getting anything else.
And I'm with you. I get a little bit of like a cream. And this is where it would be weird. It would almost be like a black cherry meringue if I were to describe it. Kind of like a meringue has that poofiness to it, a little bit of a creaminess, but it's not a super heavy cream. And that's weird. That's one of those descriptions that who's ever had a black cherry meringue, never even heard of it. Right. So, but that's how subtle that is for me. But yeah, the black cherries were not there on first sip or first nose, and now I got it. So sometimes the palate will do the same thing. Now, this is going to have a little more alcohol on the forefront because you've only put one drop. So let a little bit of saliva build up in your palate and then take a sip and see what you get.
It tasted good, but I can't pick out a flavor.
And that's fine. That's fine. This one I get a lot of the bitterness went away. So for this one, I wouldn't want to add too much water for me personally. Before I got a little bit of bitterness and kind of the nuttiness and a little bit of that oak on the forefront. Mm-hmm. Now it hits me as more sweet when I first take it in. Yeah. And then I get a lot of cream and then I get like honeys and vanillas. Mm-hmm. And then the finish, I'm almost getting like that meringue feeling again, but I don't pick up any black cherries on the taste.
You keep it in my mouth
long enough. Yeah, and I get a lot more of that. Like I do get in the mid palate, I get a hay, like a grass note, a grassy kind of note. Now, again, if you're not getting that, it's totally fine.
No, but when you say it, I can start to imagine it.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I really liked about this it was the first time when I had the Tomatin 12 was the first real clear sign where I was like, oh, I can taste the malted barley here. I can really, really get it. Because I'd heard it was described as like fresh mown grass or hay or something of a grassy note. Mm-hmm. Now, I'll let you sip. Do you have any more? Did you finish that?
I drank it.
Oh, that's perfect. Because now we're going to do, let me finish mine. So I'm going to use the Riedel glass. So I'm using different glasses as well. What a lot of people find out is they may have a glass where they seem to be able to get more of a better nose off of it. Mm. For me, the standard Glencairn, that's a Glencairn shape and glass. Mm-hmm. This is a Riedel cognac glass. I really like the way it meets my lip. They're a little more fragile. This was a set of 2, and then one got broken. I actually picked up a couple more. These are fancy dancy, all right, and it is delicate. But now we're going to pour in some, and this is going to be neat. We're not going to put any water in this at all. And we're going to see how this changes. We've already noticed that, and I've had some where the taste won't change, but the nose will change a lot, and it's really weird. And you nailed the black cherries, and so far, I definitely liked the nose and the flavor without the heavy dilution. My only point with heavy dilution is you can start with heavy dilution, and then as you're taking little sips, you can say, you know what, let me try that with just a little less water, and you kind of work your way up. Sometimes, I've been doing this for a while, I will start with no dilution. I'll go neat, and then I'll bring it down. But there was actually a guest we had who was an ambassador for one of the whiskey companies, distilleries, and he said you can shock your palate, and you should start diluted and work your way up, which is what I started doing after that. Okay. So, all right, let's go in with the nose again. So this is our third time in. This is neat. There is no dilution here at all. We're at 43% alcohol by volume. That would be 86 proof. Proof is just double the ABV. So Hmm.
Letting the smell or letting the scent come over the rim, I got some cotton candy.
Really? Yeah, and you can nose, okay. Yeah, almost like a strawberry cotton candy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit of that sugar and a little bit of that fruit.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting is I don't quite get the dark, like blackberry, at least on this one. I'm curious if it's the Riedel glass, because I have tried things in two different glasses at the same time with the same dilution, and I'll get a different nose. I still don't get the black cherry. Do you get your black cherry at all?
No.
Okay, so and I'm not getting it either. It seems like that drop of water brought out that black cherry kind of flavor or nose, not flavor, but scent. Because I'm getting more of the malted barley. And you're right, when I'm up over top, I get more of that strawberry sugar, which definitely could be like that sponge sugar, that cotton candy. Hmm. Yeah, the nose here is better when I'm up high from it.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
When I go right in.
Yeah. When I go deep in with the nose, I'm getting more of the mown hay. That's interesting. All right, so we've seen yet another change in the nosing, and I'm with you. I like being above it and off to the side or right on the lip here, and I pick up a lot more of a sugary, fruity flavor. So same deal, let a little saliva come in. This will be neat. That's fine. It bit you a little bit. Did it bite you?
You know when I talk about fire?
Yeah.
A little bit of fire.
Yep. Now, I would tell you this tasted better with the drop of water in it that I had at the mid-level.
Yeah.
I'm getting, again, predominantly, I didn't get much on the forefront. I'd have to try this again, but I get that fresh mown hay. But in the finish, I'm not getting as much of the cream as I was getting before. And I like that cream. So what I'm going to do is go back and add that water, and you can do whatever you want. You can try it that way. You can add a little water. And what you're figuring out is, hey, you know what? I kind of liked it at that mid stage. And that was your sweet spot. And so now you want to get back to it. And that is simply playing with your whiskey right there. So that is what I will do with whiskey. And it's really one of the, you'll have whiskeys and more expensive by the bottle. But again, I've been known to spend an hour with just 1 ounce and doing what we basically did here with an ounce of whiskey. And it's not about, I even had Mom over once and ran her through a little tasting like this. We actually had her on the show. Scott had his mom come on the show, and then I had our mom come on. And our mom had this great quote that she's used to like drinking faster, and that the whiskey slowed her down because of the power that it brought. And kind of the way she approached it was a little more cautious. And she said it just felt like it was a more of a soothing, slow sipping process, because it's not like you're drinking a whole bottle of wine or anything. You're spending an hour with an ounce. So we'll sip as we go, but I'll tell you the story of Tomatin. We'll bring in some comedy now. You've had the cerebral tasting and the 3-step reduction, and we've come up to neat. All right. So we had a couple of the Tomatin crew on some live remote shows where it was really cool. They're coming on our show live and remoting straight from their distillery. They're in the Highlands. They're not too far from Inverness, which is a gorgeous place. We stayed there in an Airbnb. We've actually decided that when we go back to Scotland, by the way, we were both told by our spouses they have to come. So I think they'll help us film, or we'll find a way.
Yeah.
We're going to use Inverness as our like staging base. We were in this real cool Airbnb by the river, but we literally got there at night, slept, got up and left in the morning. And I kept feeling rushed, and we had a schedule, and we're only going to be in Scotland. We were in Ireland for a week and then Scotland for a week, and we had a lot of stuff to see. So I got it. But when we got back to the States, Scott and I sat and talked, and I said, I loved Inverness, and I not that I didn't like all the places we went to, but I wish we had based there and spent some time just there. So that's what we're going to do when we go back. Now, to get to the funny story. So we go to Tomatin. We get a tour. They do tours of the distillery. Almost every, I shouldn't say every distillery. Almost every distillery, if you have a favorite or one of your fans has a favorite, or there's one even near them, you can call them, find out if they do tours, find out how they do it, especially during COVID. And I would tell you to go. If there's a tour that involves a little bit of tasting at the end, pay the little extra money for that. It's usually worth it. Tomatin has a very cool thing that we were looking forward to. They have bottlings that you will pour yourself. They put it in a stainless steel vat, and then you bottle your own thing of Tomatin, and they have different styles that are there, and you can only buy those when you're at the distillery. It is awesome.
That's cool.
We had been lucky where when we had them on live, they sent us these little 50 milliliter samples, and then they walked us through a tasting with their samples, and it's a sample kit they send out. And then they said, which one's your favorite? Well, we both had a favorite. I moved all my stuff around. I had it on the back shelf, and now I'm forgetting it had been in an Oloroso sherry butt for, I think, exclusively, and I can't remember the number of years. It was amazing. I mean, amazing. Scott and I even did a 16 bottle blind tasting, and we both picked it out as our favorite, not knowing what it was. Mm-hmm. So when we went there, first of all, a lot of people started going there and getting it. They were like, people are coming in and saying they saw your show and they want this. It was great. It was a little expensive, but it is phenomenal. So we each got ourselves a bottle of that. I actually got another bottle of their older whiskey. I think it was a 25-year-old whiskey as well. Scott doubled down. I think you can only buy 2 bottles while you're there. So he bought 2 of that Oloroso sherry. And there was a German couple, husband and wife, that were there. And I'd seen them talking and stuff. And I'd moved away to go purchase mine. And Scott was next to him. Now, they didn't recognize us. Sometimes we get recognized, sometimes we don't. But German people, we're Germanic. And German women, especially from Germany, can be a bit strict and harsh. Let's think Beata. Okay. We have a family friend who is just, it's that, blah, blah. Yeah. Well, Scott using the language of an American, which can be somewhat overpowering sometimes, even when not to, she's talking to her husband about which one to get. And he says, the Oloroso, with 2 of them in his hand, you got to get this. Okay. Using the emphatic, you got to get this. And she says, you do not tell me what I have to get. Right. And I can't do the German accent, but she's like, I make my own decision. And he's like, I'm telling you, you're going to want this. Again, too strong an American. I make my own decision. Right. Well, so she's over sampling, and I can now see that they're kind of like, as much as she wanted to make her own decision and not do what Scott told her to do, mm-hmm. as she's tasting, I can see that they're starting to agree. Mm-hmm. Now, we've been through a tour. We've had a bit of whiskey. We got to sample some very cool stuff, like 50-year-old whiskey from a barrel and all kinds of cool stuff that isn't normal. We got a little bit of a VIP behind the scenes stuff. our host had stepped out of the visitor center. Now, I start kind of teasing the German couple a little bit, and I start yelling the only few things I know in German. So I start yelling, "Was ist los?" which means like, what is up? What is up? "Was ist los?" And then I'm yelling my own answer, "Nichts ist los," which means nothing. Now, normally you don't even yell this stuff. All right. But I'm yelling this. And I'm yelling, "Schnell, schnell," which means like run, run. Okay. Yeah. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know a lot of German. The other German I know is not necessarily polite, or "Ein Bier bitte," 1 beer, please. Right. But our host, Scott, comes in while we're in the midst of the visitor center, and he sees the tallest dummy yelling, "Was ist los? Schnell, schnell." And he goes, "What are you doing? This is like public." I'm like, "Yeah, I know." And now he didn't know that Scott had been talking to the couple, and that the lady had been a little bit rough with him. And then that now she was kind of coming over to this exclusive Oloroso sherry casking, and that I was just kind of like joking around. They still weren't quite sure who the heck we were. All right. They knew we were dumb Americans, but and to her credit, she went and bought the Oloroso cask. So it was just me having fun. But yeah, you saw this look of fear on we call him Wee Scott, when he steps back in and I'm in their visitor center yelling, "Was ist los? Schnell, schnell," and "Nichts ist los." And he was like, "Why are you making fun of the German people?" And I'm like, "I'm German. I'm not really making fun. This is all I know. It's all good." And I think his employees let him know that, hey, no, they'd had a conversation. He wasn't just yelling at the German people because he was drunk. And I'm sure they probably don't do a lot of what us Americans do in Scotland. So, because I can be a little over the top at times.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, you can.
And, ooh, that is good. I like that, just sitting in the glass. So that was us at Tomatin when we were in the Scottish Highlands. Yeah, I can get loud. So.
Oh, yeah. Have some more. Thanks for joining us in that Scotch tasting. All right, we're going to wrap it up for now, but the next episode, you're going to get to see more about the Tam and another story from Bart. So enjoy your Scotch, and thanks for watching.